part of 2016 is going to be us sort of on NX alert.
Yep.
And one thing that I do want to bring up with this group is that if Nintendo is serious about NX being a 2016 product, that conversation has to start happening next month.
Yeah.
No question. This is something that it needs to be a Q1 announcement. And I'm betting it is a Q1 announcement because the longer you sit on this, the less lead time you have to build that excitement. Right now, you have a ton of people excited at the mention of any time those two letters come up, but they have no idea what to be excited about.
Yeah.
Because everything is speculation, rumor, people are saying this, industry-leading chips, blah, blah, blah. Like every other week, it feels like another reason to sort of get really excited, but not really know why.
Random analyst thinks if it came out, it would hurt 3DS sales.
Yep.
Bigger than pizza.
Not
Stay
knowing
tuned.
what the system is, it will hurt 3DS sales.
Nothing Nintendo does will ever be bigger than pizza, Jose. Come on, get it together.
But do you, besides that disagreement, do you agree with that if this is a thing that you're planning to sell this year, that conversation needs to start next month?
I don't care when the conversation starts with us. I want the conversation to start with third parties immediately. I want games on my game console at launch. That would be a nice change for things because the 3DS didn't have them at launch and the Wii U didn't really have them at launch.
I guess by bringing it up, by starting the conversation with us, I mean for us, it's to get off of this sort of the final stages or whatever, the waiting phase that is Wii U's life right now, because it is very much, when's my next game? All right, great, woo! Then months of hands down. When's my next game? When's my next big game? Let me clarify that, because there are a ton of games that come out.
You understand the risk, right? Like the risk
Huge
is
risk.
There's still Wii U's on store shelves. You know, Nintendo still wants to sell Wii U games. Nintendo still wants retailers to champion the platform. What they don't want is mom going into a GameStop and then the GameStop guy says, no, they're going to discontinue this thing soon. Just wait 2 months, you'll get an NX, right?
What are retailers championing? You ever go to retail to look at the Wii U section? It's depressing at times. Outside of a ton of Amiibo these days, there's not a lot going on. And this has been the case for a lot of the system's life. I know we've recommended the system on the show before, but I think a clearer vision into these plans needs to be made.
Yeah, but why now? Why not in 2 months or 3 months, right? Like
I think you can't wait past March. That's my thing.
I think the reason why you haven't heard anything is because what they can show you and explain is not there yet.
Sure. And then there is, and like your risk is, what you said about risk is right, but also the risk of getting it wrong. If you rush this thing out the door, that's a problem.
But
it's a bigger problem.
Remember Wii U? With the Wii U, it actually didn't work at all, right? Like where I would argue they didn't have the stuff that would demonstrate why Wii U is special until way later. Like if they had shown people Wii U and said, this is Super Mario Maker.
Yeah.
And you can only play this on the Wii U, and this is how it works. Everybody goes, oh, I get it. This is like Nintendo letting the audience in and creating this tablet controller that lets them customize stuff.
That would have been a phenomenal launch game.
That would have been a completely different story.
Yes.
And I think they're very careful. Hopefully, they're very careful to avoid that with the NX, where they come out and they have some crappy line drawing demo, and they're like, oh, in the future, you'll be able to see color here. You know, like they need to show something that explains why this system will sit in a living room, or if it's portable, in your bag when you already have a PS4 and a 3DS.
Yeah, and completely I agree with you that they have to be ready to say so. But I think at this state in the game, if it is known internally that this is a 2016 product, which I think internally they do know the answer to that question, whether or not this is a November or a September.
Do you think so?
Or an August thing.
Japan probably does.
Japan does. It absolutely can be if it's far along. If it's not ready, then we need to start seeing more reasons why Wii U is going to be okay this year. Because right now, for example, a French retailer listed Star Fox Zero as a July game, and people are now worrying, is that game delayed again? If that game's delayed again, what am I playing? I would say this, you probably weren't going to pay that much attention to it because you'd still probably be playing Twilight Princess if you're a Zelda person, and that game's going to take a while. That's a 60-hour plus Zelda game unless they cut that many corners to make it faster. And those two games are right now, I believe, scheduled to come out the same month. One at the start and one at the end.
Yeah, that's not going to happen. We all know that. That is not going to happen. Look, it would be nice to get... I mean, we're all clamoring for more information on the NX and on Zelda. and more clarity. I think there is a little bit of ambivalence too, because maybe they're not yet sure on everything, right? Like how fast, the Chinese manufacturers can deliver the chipsets, while Apple is also planning to use them to manufacture the next iPhone. There are a lot of moving parts, I think, in trying to line up, line up all your ducks in a row there.
Sure.
So I think the other thing to consider is that early last year, it looked like PlayStation VR would have come in 2015. Now PlayStation VR Morpheus is a big 2016 product, which means there's hardware to buy for people and spend money on, whereas, originally maybe Nintendo thought they wouldn't be in this year. Like, I think there are always these moving parts where you got to think about what timing is right.
Yeah, but that's competing for a different audience. I would use as a counter argument.
It's money for hardware.
It's money for hardware, but it's a product that right now is still targeted towards a more niche audience. People who have this crazy expectation that VR is going to be a mainstream product in 2016, in my opinion, need to pipe down. 2016, when VR starts, it'll be a niche product, and that the responsibility of the people driving that industry is to make it quality. It is not to make it cheap.
I get it. The challenge, though, is that the excitement and the coverage and the interest overshadows another product that comes to market, right? Like if everybody's talking about this cool VR thing, that can take a toll on a Nintendo product announcement too. The Wii did it to everybody else, right? Like people are like, this motion control thing is so cool, anyone can play it, to the point where both Sony and Microsoft felt like they had to develop a product because this was a new thing, right? And like there's a risk that VR becomes that talk. But as we've seen with the price of the Oculus Rift, right, $600. That is not a mass market product. So now we're waiting to see how much PlayStation VR is. Is it the price of a console, or is it going to be more? But come on, man. I think there are finite dollars in the games-only category. And I think there is risk any of these products getting introduced. There's risk that people are going to have to pick and choose what they spend on.
I mean, there are finite dollars, but on the same page, like the PS4 is at 38 million sold. And by the time the NX comes out, Nintendo will have hit the reset button twice during the lifespan of the PS4, which will have hundreds of games under its belt. Same with the Xbox One, although not as many sold units. And it's going to be very difficult for people to go, do I get back on this? Do I get on this brand new thing? Or do I get on one of these old things that's been around for a few years? Like, it's got to really have something to separate it from everything else. And if it does, it's got to be interesting, and it can't just be as the populace deems it gimmicky. Because you mentioned how Sony and Microsoft both got into motion control. Those were afterthoughts for both of them, right? They were never really the main focus, where it was for the Wii, and that was a good bet at the time. That kind of tablet gaming thing that Nintendo put forth, or 3D gaming as they did with the 3DS, those were the main focuses, right? They ended up being optional experiences, but ultimately that was the front and center thing that when a consumer goes into a store, they go, oh, this is a tablet controller. It's not just a regular controller.
Glasses-free 3D. I don't need to wear glasses to see this.
So as somebody who got a new 3DS on launch day and got a Wii U on launch day, who feels kind of burned by both of those systems because neither of them really truly delivered on what I wanted them to do.
You didn't play your two exclusive new 3DS games?
Not really.
All right.
Right? I mean, think about the robust exclusive library that came to the new 3DS. Like, the system's a little faster. That's okay.
Yeah, but I would say going in, if you didn't expect, like, no offense, it is a revision, and I think being a hardware revision comes with the expectation that, yes, it can support exclusive games, but I don't think, unless it sells gangbusters from when it came out, that you'll see many exclusive games. I think that's an understanding, at least among hardcore audiences. Not to
then that just what that tells me is that I'm bad at betting, because I've made now two poor bets.
I mean, but are you that disappointed with your new 3DS? Just out of curiosity,
I'm not
You're
disappointed
with the library.
You could have lived without it. Yeah,
I'm completely flatline lukewarm on it.
Okay.
Now I'm a consumer in the know. I'm on a popular Nintendo weekly podcast. When I walk into a store, I know what I'm looking for.
Of course.
If I was a father or mother of two and I just casually check the industry, buying a DS console or system in the DS family line would be one of the most alienating and confusing.
Or the 3DS family. Sorry.
The 3DS or the 2D, the new 2DS.
Well, they're part of the 2DS is part of the 3DS family. That's what I'm doing for you. I'm setting up
none
the
of them
joke.
come with a charging cable. unless
These
you have the
days.
old one. But do you have the old one? Oh, my son has the DS. Which DS? Oh, it doesn't work.
Do you want to protect your purchase for $30 more?
Yeah, but
If it scratches, we'll give you a new one.
It blows your mind. So I think that there's a lot of big problems to tackle here. One is they've been very kind of confusing with messaging on what their consoles can do, what their handhelds can do, who they're for. Secondly, I think naming them has been incredibly difficult too. Right? Like, what is the 3DS? What is the 2DS? What is the new 3DS? What is the Wii U? What is the Wii?
2DS is pretty clear.
Yeah.
The Wii U name was it's misstep.
Yeah, I don't know if the 2DS is pretty clear. It's a 2D version of 3DS. It plays all your 3DS versions.
But
in
it's
2D.
not a DS.
But it's not a DS, and it doesn't play new 3DS exclusive
All right,
games.
but we beat this naming topic to death. I feel.
But I'm putting
let's
out some of the hurdles here.
Sure. No, and I think those are all fair. But I do think that at this point, I feel like going into 2016. I mean, I am expecting a Nintendo Direct this month in January because they have Twilight Princess to start marketing.
Yep.
They have Star Fox to start marketing, and whatever like Indie or 3DS. 3DS has a huge first quarter filled with RPGs.
Box Boy 2
I'm
is
sure
going to come
Box
to the US.
Boy One More Box is absolutely getting announced.
Is this called One More Box?
That's the Japanese name. One
I
More
love
Box.
that title.
yeah. It's really clever. I put some time in with the Japanese one, but we're not really going to spend a lot of time on impressions. I feel like we all know that NX was not revealed in the right conditions. Iwata, late President Iwata, was in a situation where he had to talk about Nintendo going into the mobile market and also still solidify that we are still a hardware maker. We are not going away from that.
Yeah.
And so he had to show that hand early.
Yeah.
It was a defense, and they've been very clear, 2016, 2016, 2016. It's 2016.
Yeah.
And so all I'm saying is that, and this was the larger point, if this is a 2016 product, you need to set those expectations and start talking about it now so people could get excited, so developers can start getting excited. You can't save that until E3. I just don't think that
The developer
we're in
part,
a world where that works.
I agree with you, unless they're making the same mistake again, right? Where they're signing up their support way late.
Yep.
They need to talk to developers early, which means some of the rumbling is going to get out and some of the uniqueness of the platform would get out if they started to talk only to developers. So yes, a smart move would be to announce it on all fronts.
Yeah.
It doesn't feel like Nintendo though. Like it feels like Nintendo is going to wait and make a splash at E3.
Yeah, but this is a Nintendo in dire straits right now. Wii U not taking off or not in the situation that it's in. 10 million sold, fine, but not Nintendo-like profits.
I mean, the thing is with third-party developers.
I like
third-party developers.
That's much better.
If you have two options, right? Either you create a new console that is unique, and you give developers optimal time to create something unique for that platform, or you give them a console that has parity with the other consoles, and you give them enough time to port the games that they already have available on PS4 and Xbox One. Yeah. The Wii U did neither of those things. It said, here's this new thing. You have no time to create dedicated from the ground up experiences for it, which is why we didn't get a lot of that outside of like Zombie U and a couple weird mini games here and there. And it was also last gen hardware, which means they couldn't make the games they were developing for PS4 and Xbox One work on it. So we got a bunch of Xbox 360 games at the launch of the Wii U. Which made no sense. Which made no sense at the end of that console generation. Now I want to make sure they don't go and do that again with the NX, where they go, well, so this thing plays PS4 launch games, sort of, and by then the PS4 and the Xbox One, they're already moving on to the next kind of things in a few years. Or they go, you can do something totally amazing with this system. It's unlike anything you've ever seen before. You have 2 months to figure it out.
Yeah.
Well, what if
that's where it becomes a problem.
What if it's a portable PS4 equivalent?
PS4.
I'm turning German on you guys here. If it was like that, though? What if it used the specs from this current generation, but for a console that is both home and portable, like we talked about?
Then that's huge. But
do you think that's different, or do you think that's still a disappointment to publishers?
I mean, so that would be huge, right?
Yeah.
Obviously, I think like just on
Vita didn't work, right?
Yeah, no.
Vita was not a success.
Well, the main problem was that with Vita, games were built for the ground up like they were built for televisions, and they try to make AAA first-person shooters on a handheld. It doesn't work.
But porting a game, let's say this is, I don't know. I was going to make a point about this being a portable device, and that I've made this point before. Not every game works on every screen. Some do.
Yes.
Some don't.
That's
but
a good
I
way to
think
put it.
PSP is an example of when that thing came out, there were a lot of ports promised that were going to be PS2-like experiences, and it all backfired because it couldn't handle it, or the fidelity of control wasn't that great, or there are limitations with storage, which still exist today, although flash memory helps, but I guess the larger point I'm trying to make with all of this is, if it's not 2016, let's hear that early. Let's set that expectation.
Yeah.
If it is 2016, come out swinging, start talking, figure out your message, and start getting people excited because they want to be excited.
So what's their universe look like if they do delay the system to 2017? Like what is up with the Wii U?
Let's do both
and the
scenarios.
3DS?
If they announce before the next investors meeting, Kimishima looks really good going into that meeting.
Yep.
And when the investor questions come, it's not going to be a ton of what the heck is going on with NX. Instead, it'll be like, what's going on with mobile, what's going on with all these other things. And it does make him look very good if that next system is starting to get excitement in the press and in other places. And that's just not about him. It's also about their business.
You're talking about giving specifics as to what it is, or saying it is a 2016 Q4 launch, or
A basic introduction, not too specific, like definitely keeping some details hidden, but ultimately saying, look, I hate to compare companies, but Sony came out with a smart way to do it. Even though the initial PS4 reveal was this 2-hour, way too long thing, it was, hey, our next system's in development. Here's what the controller looks like. Here's what some games will look like. We're going to have more coming in this year. So that to me is a smart way to start the conversation about the next thing.
Because it is, it's a public company, obviously Nintendo, traded on the Japanese stock exchange. So Nintendo has to disclose stuff at a certain point in time before launch to the shareholders. The moment they disclose it to the shareholders, it's disclosed to the world, right?
Yep.
And so
Public.
that's there's also, with bad news, like if the system was going to come out in 2017, that would tank Nintendo stock.
Yeah.
Right. And so they have
just
to
like the mobile announcement did when they said we're pushing it to next year.
Yeah,
Sorry,
they have
continue.
to. They have to align. Sometimes they have to soften the bad news with the good news, right? And so, as they're kicking off their mobile initiative, that's a good time to also drop some bad news. So
100%,
or as their mobile game is selling through the roof and they're making a lot of money, that's a good time to give the bad news.
That's the good old like magician's trick, right?
Yeah.
Like you watch this hand, the other hand's moving the thing behind the back.
Now
Like,
for the prestige.
yes,
Nice,
100%.
nice. All right.